Hi, Sue Wilson, back again for another episode of Crafting My Style. This card's actually really easy to do, but it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for me to show you how to do this part without getting too messy and having a white card. So this should be kind of interesting. I'll go ahead and introduce you to the dies we're going to be using. On today's card, we've got from the New York collection, we've got the Union Square. We're also going to be using the Times Square and the Madison Square. And it's lovely that these sets will mix and match, so we're going to be using pieces from all the sets to create our card. And as a little floral element, we're going to be using the open petal Camellia. And then to do our background, we've got the Climbing Vines A4 embossing folder. And I think I'll start there. We'll do a little bit of embossing first up. And I've got a piece of coconut white card, and I'm just going to pop it into our folder here. That looks good. Put it onto our base plate and cover it with our raspberry adapter plate. And run it through the grand caliper. Quick and easy. Ooh, this is pretty. I just love the emboss from these. It's so nice. Gives you a really deep emboss. Very pretty, I think. And we're going to go ahead and work from our base upward. So I'm going to go and put the tape on there and get it all secured into place. And then we'll start in on our focal element. Now I've went ahead and pierced a little edge around that. I've got a little bit of teal card peeking out, and that's going to tie in with our ribbon later on. That looks about right. Okay, I went and cut 2 of the Times Square already. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put some glue on the back of these and glue them down to my background, but I'm going to make it look like it's a rectangle instead of a square. It's nice how you can change the shape of your dies just by kind of covering up little joins and whatnot. So let's see, I'm going to put that one right about there. That's about right. Let that set up. Put a little bit of glue on this one. Let that set up. And I'm just going to put that so that the insides crisscross there. And if you notice, the sides on this particular die are a little bit different than the other sides. So I'm going to line both of these up on the side and keep the same orientation on the tops of both of those. Right, so I've got a nice base for my focal element there. I went ahead and cut the center out of the Union Square. Look how pretty that is. And that, done on the kind of in a diamond orientation, will cover where I've joined those. Put a little bit of mounting foam on the back already to raise it for dimension. Just pop that into place, and you cannot even tell that that die was not a rectangle to begin with. See, that's another way you can use your squares to create different looks on your cards. Okay, I'm going to build that up in the layers. I've gone ahead and stamped a sentiment and then cut it out with the inside of one of the other squares. And I've used the little bit of the inside of the Union Square, I believe. It's really pretty. It's got a nice deboss pattern to it. I've put some mounting foam on that just to raise it up over my sentiment. Peel off the backs of these. There we go. And I'm going to put this just over the top of that to create a little frame for my sentiment. Okay, put that onto our card in kind of a diamond orientation as well. That looks all right. So I'm building up all the layers and the elements of the card. And like I said, it's really simple to do so far. No problem whatsoever. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is add my flowers. I went ahead and cut some of the open petal camellias. I've done 2 and glued them together here. And I'm going to go ahead and do these 2. So you can see, I'm just going to offset them. really pretty like that. And then we're going to put this on top of the larger one. Offset that again, creating a really pretty flower pattern, and put a little glue in the middle there. And I'm going to add a pearl to that. This is one of our 8mm flat back pearls. Oops, caught the top of that. There we go. Okay, so you've got a really pretty flower now, and then you can raise these petals up to give it some dimension. Now that is going to seat in the middle of my ribbon, and I went ahead and I've got one that I've done ahead of time and dyed, but I will show you at the very end how I've created this. It's kind of what I call a shabby chic bow. I've squished it and let it dry naturally, so it's got all those little curls and folds in it. I love the way that looks. You can take those out, by the way, if you want to use a heat tool. You can make them go flat if you prefer it that way. I know some people don't care for the scrunch look as much as I do. Very easy to do. Seam binding is one of those ribbons that won't actually melt like an organza, so you can use a heat tool on it, which is nice. I'm going to put my flower in the center of that. Okay. And then I've got a couple little flowers here, or one little flower here I've done out of just the white, the very, very smallest little Camellia. It's a tiny little guy. I'm going to add him with some glue right up here on my sentiment. Pop him into place. Give that a second to hold up. And I've created a couple of stick pins I'm going to go ahead and put into place too. And I thought it was wise that I build the card before I start to dye my ribbon for you. That way it's all nice and clean and tidy. Yeah, it's nice like that. So I can show you how easy that is. And now I'll show you how to create that ribbon. So I'm going to clear off my mat here. You do need a craft mat for this. I'm using some pine needles and some broken china. Now, I've got broken china in an ink pad. I've also got it in a re-inker if you wanted a little deeper color. So what we're going to do is just swipe some colors onto our craft mat. We're going to go in with a squirt bottle, add some water, and I've got some white seam binding here. We're just going to pop that into the middle of that and start to basically sop up the color with our ribbon. You're going to add a little more water and get it nice and inky. And let's see, I can even add some more color to this and darken that up if I like, and get some different variations going into that. Change that any way I like. Now, I personally think the green coming through this is really nice. So I'm going to wipe down the water there and just go back in with the pine needles and add a little bit extra of that color to it. Kind of pick that up in spots. I like the streakiness of that. It gives it a little bit more of a teal tone too. So you can see my fingers are getting a little bit messy here. I think that's nice and dyed. Now, I let mine dry naturally because I like the way it gives you that kind of a mixture of tones coming through. But if you don't have that kind of time, you can dry it with a heat tool very, very easily. The nice thing too, if you dry it with a heat tool and you don't think it's dark enough, because it will dry a little bit lighter, you can add more and do it again. And although you think you've dyed it all the way through because the color is really intense, you'll start to see areas that are lighter than others. So it's got a little bit more of like a tie-dyed look to it. The other thing you can do, which I think is quite pretty, is you can leave it crunched up like that and kind of hit it in spots and just bring out a little bit more color and get just all sorts of variations to what you like. I think that's really quite pretty. I won't touch my card again, but you can see how the dyeing has come along, and you can match anything that you like. Unfortunately, my finger's a little untidy. I'll tell you what I will do. I'll show it one more time. There we go. Finished product, how's that? So if you let it dry naturally, you get a little bit more of that look. If you heat dry it with your tool, it'll be a little more consistent in color. It just depends on what you like. But I think that's a fun way to add some extra accents to your card. Just bring it to life and basically have a white card, and you can pop it with color using your seam binding dyed to match.